I can't speak for corporate, but from the engineers that I've seen out there, just in the FOSS world, just like with Red Hat, the engineers, they're all great people. Like, they're all doing great work. You might have issues with the way the company is run, specific things that corporate is doing, but people, like, you need to separate the people who are doing the groundwork from the company that you may have issues with.
Yeah. But I've spoken now to every member of Mozilla leadership, I think.
Mhm.
And they all say if you ask them like, how did you end up here? It's all something like, well, in my career, I worked at Google, I worked at Microsoft, I worked at Twitter, I worked at whatever, and the list goes on and on. Depending on how old they are too, it's a different list of companies. But like,
Mhm.
and they're like, I felt like I was compromising my values in some way when I worked there, and I wanted to come to a place where I could bring my talent, but the in support of values that I thought were good and I agreed with, and uh, and usually, in fact, almost everyone I know in leadership has a background in open source, in activism around like digital rights to privacy and things like that, and they are giving up opportunities at places where they could make a heck of a lot more money to try and do good. And I think that some of the criticism that I have seen on the internet is just kind of unfounded because like I don't there's no one in it. There there is no one, period, that I have met at Mozilla who is there for money. There are just the amount of talent you need to work on the products at Mozilla and their competitors who you're competing against. Like if you're good enough to work on a browser that's trying to keep up with Chrome and Edge and Safari, doing a stack that is completely Mozilla, like because Gecko, even the rendering engine is also completely in house. It's the only independent one left on the planet. Like to do that is like so hard that if you're capable of doing that, you can go somewhere else and make
Mhm.
more money. So anyway, I'll get off that soapbox, but the folks who are working on Thunderbird, who are working on Firefox, who are working on the different products that Mozilla creates, are doing it because they love open source, or they're a big proponent of privacy, of digital, like data sovereignty, all these different things that Mozilla stands for.
Mhm.
So end of rant.
So, one thing we didn't really touch on earlier is what does the relationship between Thunderbird and Mozilla actually look like at this point?
Well, we're so Thunderbird is a project,
Right.
and then you have to, and that is community run.
Mhm.
Um, there is a elected council who uh, have what we call module ownership over the whole project,
Mhm.
and they appoint module owners under them who manage the different parts of Thunderbird, who are kind of the leader in each of those areas. So one would be like mail, another one would be calendar, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm. Mhm.
Those aren't always, and in fact, right now I don't think most of them are employees of MZLA,
Mhm.
who is which is just the legal home for hiring people who work on Thunderbird. Now, our relationship back to the foundation
Mhm.
is that NZLA is obviously owned by the foundation as a subsidiary.
Mhm.
They help us solve problems that, frankly, even for a team our size, we're still kind of small in that we encounter problems sometimes. For instance, like we a company in China just like disputed our trademark,
Oh, that's fun.
in China. Okay, so like we're mostly engineers in MZLA, so we don't have the actual ability to like sort that problem out.
Mhm.
And so, the foundation and their expertise helps us sort that out.
Mhm.
And they do a number of things for us like that. And they own the trademark for Thunderbird, and they own the trademark for Firefox. Um, and then what else should I say? The Mozilla Corporation, who makes Firefox, um, is we collaborate on the things that we share, which we share quite a bit of things. And they're really helpful for solving problems at scale that are difficult for us to solve, because they're operating at you know depending on what we're talking about, a 10 to 100x scale. So when we're successful and we're like, oh my gosh, we're successful and we're encountering this new problem,
Mhm.
they're like, oh, it's okay. Like we know we've dealt with this problem before. We know how to solve it.
Mhm.
So I guess that's like the way I would think about all these things. And now we're at a point where we fix problems in Thunderbird that also fix problems in Firefox.
Mhm.
And of course, they fix problems for us too. Sometimes they create problems because we're downstream for them, but like that's not really their fault. They're building a product, and then and the last thing I'll say, and we can talk a little bit about Supernova because it's relevant,
Yes.
is we have done a lot of work to decouple from the breakages.
Mhm.
Because a browser is not it's not an email client.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we were reusing a lot of things from the browser that frankly we should have built ourselves.
Mhm.
And so stuff was breaking that was like, well, really, if we stopped using the browser component for that and we just made a component that's for email or calendar or insert, feature here,
Mhm.
it wouldn't break because it would be purpose built
Mhm.
for what we're doing. And so, like I said, it's not their fault. It's just a matter of being downstream from somebody.
Mhm.